You know, um, I I asked this question on Facebook at some of the animation and cartoon group pages there. I even asked this at DeviantArt, and I've asked this at the Sega forums in the lounge area, and I'm going to ask it here on YouTube because this is something that's kind of getting to me a little bit. You know, I guess I can I guess I can thank Rob, the Wonderful, for doing the video that he did. Well, actually, re-uploading his 50th cartoon clip show episode on Jason the World Warriors, which I am happy to say I do have the complete series of, thanks to Mill Creek Entertainment, as well as me DVD ripping, or DVD fabbing, I should say, the Shout Factory release when I rented that. Anyway, um, one one of the things he showed during his 50th episode, of course, talking about Jason the World Warriors, he was talking about the episodes and everything, how basically the whole series was one connecting arc. And one of the episodes he talked about was called Bloodstone. And the plot was basically centered around some kind of a stone that I guess had to be returned because I'm assuming without it, everything, anything, and everything got turned to crystal. Basically, anything, everything, anyone got turned to crystal. And when I saw this scene, I thought to myself, you know, man, this is how long it's been going on. Because as the title says here, it's the same way as it says in the other areas. Typed up the question. Is it me, or is this played out in animation? And what I mean is the whole, because I look at it like a false death, if you will. I look at it as a false death, basically something to get some of the supporting characters, minor characters, out of the way. At least for that episode, maybe for a multitude of episodes. But I look at it as a false death. And what I mean by a false death is basically a character turning into stone, or getting turned into stone, or turned into crystal, or getting turned into a plant like a tree. You know, whatever. Getting sucked into quicksand or absorbed into some kind of goo and all that. And to me, to me, it just I think it's just overplayed in animation and in cartoons. Now, some people have given me answers that are legitimately okay, um, and I appreciate the answers to the questions. Some of them say one of the first answers I got was it was because they need conflict, and I can completely understand that. But you can do more to get conflict than just going in the same routine direction other shows have, if not movies have. You can go in that same direction, and you you could get conflict without doing that. I'm not saying animation is the only one at fault here. Comic books are the same way. One of the more recent examples in the past couple of years or several years was the Sonic the Hedgehog one with the Mecha Sally arc. Here's Sally. She sacrifices herself to be roboticized to save the planet, and she ends up getting weaponized. She ends up becoming roboticized, working for Eggman, becoming weaponized. Basically, she goes through what's known as a false death. True, it was a long, drawn out false death, but pretty much a lot of us knew she was going to come back, especially when people provided little pictures of the New York Comic Con back in I think 2011 or so of what her new redesign would look like going into, I believe 2000 or 2010 or something like that, going into the following year or so when she would be brought back. So we pretty much already knew she was coming back because you can't just do that to a main character that's been around for 20 something years and just be done with her. You can't do that, as far as I'm concerned. But like I said, that's sort of another example of a false death. Basically, you just did that to her to get her out of the way to focus on other characters, which some may agree was a good move, and some will agree was not a good move. But besides that, and the absorption, like certain things like goo somewhat absorbing characters and trapping them in it, and stuff like that. The most common at times is the turn into stone or crystal deal. Now, I'm not saying that the absorption by goo or something like that, because a good example of this is Fairy Tail, is the anime Fairy Tail. There's somebody here on YouTube, I'm not going to say who specializes in sharing just several seconds, if not several, maybe minutes or so, of clips related to female characters, sometimes male characters, but mostly female characters, sinking down into quicksand or being absorbed into something. And when this person put this clip up from Fairy Tail, basically this was a situation that lasted, I think, at least 2 or 3 episodes. Because by the time the third episode came around, all the characters were released. They were back to normal. And to me, this, along with the turn into stone and crystal deal or whatever, or turn into plants like trees and all that, to me, it's just, it's not that I really have a problem with it, because it is fascinating, but to me, it's just played out. It's like, how many times are you going to turn into, how many times are the hero characters, whether they're major or minor hero characters, hero characters, and even some major or minor villain characters, and even tweener characters, if you will, anti-heroes, if you will. How many times are they going to go through this? How many times are creators of animes and animation here in Western animation, I should say, in European animation, how many times are they going to pull this rabbit out of their hat before people get sick and tired of it? I mean, I understand you have every few years, or I would say 4 or 5 years, you have a new generation of kids that get invested in these kind of shows. And when you pull something like this out of your hat, for them being first time viewers, it's like, oh my gosh, are they going to survive? Is the hero or the heroine going to be able to restore everybody? I mean, I get it's to attract those new viewers. I get that. But to me, it's just played out. It's played out far too much. And, when Yu-Gi-Oh did it, I could understand the situation there, because if the characters would have lost, if Yugi would have lost to Noah, then his friends' bodies that were in the system, that were hooked up to these virtual pods, those bodies would get inhabited by a majority by the rest of the Big Five. The rest of the Big Five would inherit those bodies to be able to escape back into the real world. I can understand that situation. I can understand that, but to me, it's just something that's been played out to death. It's like, how many times are you going to do that to a character? How many times are you going to rely on that story arc or that story plot for that episode or for that number of episodes, either 2 or 3 or 4 parts, before people get sick and tired of it? I mean, Wakafu, which I didn't know much about, has a similar situation, I guess somewhat draws from the game source itself, to where one of the main characters, the princess character, I believe her name is, I believe it is, I'm not really sure, she ends up getting turned into a freaking tree along with some of her fellow allies because of a certain condition. Now, like I said, I can understand that ties in to the game, but pretty much if you watch the series, and it ran for I think about 2 seasons, if you watch the series, you saw that she, along with the other characters that got turned into trees or plants, got restored. I mean, what's her name? Dana, I think, from Martin Mystery. There are several situations where she temporarily got turned into stone, even if for a few moments. And it's like, okay, she got restored, but basically it was basically a false death for her. It's like, it's like, how many more times is that trope going to be pulled out? Now, I can understand and accept, and this is why I commission several friends like Grape Athenia, and I request somebody like Prender and several others over at DeviantArt to do these kind of stories. I can understand if you write a character, major or minor character, that maybe for an episode or so inherits the power to turn into anything they want to be. And I can understand that you want them to use that to have a little fun, be a little bit mischiefy. And Mr. Internet Man, he does a great job with that, with the Veronica Demonica dynamic that he does every month. Every month or every other month. He features, sometimes his comics feature Veronica Demonica just killing some time, turning into whatever they want to be. Turning into different people, turning into mostly different inanimate objects, plants, whatever. So, and they're doing it for fun. And I can understand if some writer does that for a major or minor character and has them do that for fun. That's not a problem with me, because that's a part of the, oh, turn into this or that. It's not really played out. But my point is the whole false death portion of it, where someone is turned into crystal, turned into stone, turned into a plant or whatever, just to get them out of the way for a few episodes, maybe one episode or a few episodes, or for the rest of the season, by basically falsely killing them off by turning them into a statue or a plant or whatever. That's getting played out more than characters that gain temporarily a power to turn into whatever they want. Is. I mean, if animated shows and animes, if Western European animated shows and animes in the Far East would focus more on characters, gaining temporarily powers that allow them to turn into whatever they want and have a little fun with it, be mischiefy, I can understand that. I can get that because that's like I said, that's a part of that trope. That's a side of that's a side of this whole turn into statues, whatever deal that's not been explored that much, and it should be because sooner or later, if not already, you're gonna have people getting sick and tired of the whole, as I call it, the whole false death deal by turning a character, either minor or major or whatever, into an inanimate object like a statue or a crystal, like a stone statue or a crystal statue or whatever, or even a plant, knowing that the fans are pretty much because you're pretty much confirming by doing that, even for one episode or several episodes, you're pretty much confirming to the fans that yeah, we're just getting them out of the way for the right now, but they'll be okay, they'll be fine. There's no ramification, and it gets pretty boring. It gets pretty much played out to the point that people don't want to see it anymore. You know, I'm kind of surprised, honestly, and well, actually, I shouldn't be really too surprised that I haven't seen it that much with Western animation here in the States recently, or even any European in animations overseas. I haven't seen it or heard about it. I maybe heard about it be a few times or so in Japan in the anime, but still, I haven't really seen that trope being used much. And you know why? Because pretty much, I think a lot of the studios out there are realizing that people are getting sick and tired of it, and it's been played to death. Now, if they did something along the lines of, you know, turn someone to crystal, like let's say in the Bloodstone episode of Jason the World Warriors, when everything, including the Lightning League of Flora and Herc, and even the Wizard, and I can't think of the little knight's name right now. It's on the top of my head. I can't think of it. What really would have been something is if they got turned to stone to crystal. What would really be something is if they did something, if they had some kind of ramification or something that made it more difficult for Jace to. Well, he would save them and restore them to normal, but make it almost a little bit more difficult for him to attempt to do it. And that would be like basically make them a permanent, basically make them slowly start to become part of the planet itself. Or have them, have some kind of conflict. Like maybe have some kind of crystal monster or something emerge out of nowhere, and anything that's got turned to crystal, gets attached to him and becomes part of it. And Jace sees, let's say, Flora connected to this thing as part of it now because she's been turned to crystal. He can't destroy it because it would destroy Flora. So, to me, something like that would work out better. Matter of fact, I'll give you a good idea. A good idea. Who really did this? Who really came up with this? And I know it's an anime out there. It's called Unico, I believe. It's about that little unicorn, I believe, the little unicorn. And I think it was the first movie because I saw this first movie, and I think I saw Bob Show review it or something. I'm not sure who reviewed it, but in the first Unico movie, all the people, and it was thanks to this one character that I think went to good or turned good at the end. Well, actually, not. Yeah, he turned good, but because he sacrificed himself. But basically, this one character was serving this entity, this being, this villain, the villain of the film. And basically, what happens is because he was serving this being, and he's gotten this power, or whatever he was granted. A lot of the citizens, men and children, if you will, men, women, and children, ended up being turned into stone people. But here was the thing that made it a lot more difficult, although they somehow were able to survive. Yes, they got restored and everything, and they survived. But here's where that first Unico movie got it kind of right and made it more conflicting. They got it right by basically making the people, after they could turn to stone, making them become making them become additional parts of the castle. In other words, they became the castle that the entity, the being, the villain that of the movie that was living in. The reason the castle kept getting bigger and stronger was because it was being built upon by people that got turned to stone. In other words, that people that got turned to stone would end up inserting themselves into parts of the castle that were being built. So they would they would either lie down flat and insert themselves as that portion of the castle, or stand up, whatever. And literally, it would make it more conflicting because, as a viewer, you weren't sure. Okay, there's a chance they'll be restored, but wouldn't they be destroyed? It made it more conflicting than just having them turn to stone or crystal in the shape that they are, in the regular humanoid shape, knowing that, hey, they'll be restored, no problem. I mean, I'll give you another. It's, and again, that is an example of how it's played right. That right there. Here's another example. It's sort of similar to what I said with Sally's Mecha Sally deal. When the first Mega Man Sonic crossover happened, it was mainly the game characters. And all the Sonic good guy game characters like Tails, well, he got restored, so we'll put him out of the equation. But characters like Knuckles, Amy, Shadow, Blaze, Silver, the Chaotix, Rouge, although we could take her out of the equation because she got roboticized last. Basically, they all became roboticized masters. Now, throughout the comic, they pretty much figured out after Tails was and this was thanks to Tails' help after he got restored. They pretty much figured out that a spin dash. Pretty much they figured this out, that Mega Man blasting them and Sonic spin dashing them would restore them. So again, like I said, after Tails was restored, Mega Man was given or fitted with a spin dash blast attack that would restore everybody back to flesh and blood, basically de-roboticize them. So here's the thing. So here's the thing. When I read this, and I still stick by this, I think what would have made it more conflicting, and maybe even probably more talkable with a lot of people, is if the characters that got turned into roboticized masters, the remaining Sonic heroes, if you will, if the doctors, Eggman and Wily, would have added a combining set or combining function. In other words, have them combine into one roboticized master robot that basically Sonic would have to fight. Sonic and Mega Man would have to fight, and it would be more conflicting and dramatic because, yes, you knew they'd be all right, but from a character standpoint, you would have maybe a conflict going on between Sonic and Mega Man being like, we have no choice but to destroy them. Well, Sonic's like, no, we can restore them, we can save them. So to me, that would have added more conflict. That would have added more conflict to that temporary false death that they got by being turned into roboticized masters. It would have added more to that conflict. But you see, that wasn't the case. They didn't capitalize on it. And pretty much by keeping them individualized, you knew they were going to be restored without no problem. Now, again, this is why I haven't really seen this trope being played that much, this trope card being played that much anymore. Because I think some animation studios and anime studios realize it's been played to death. And that nowadays, nowadays with social media and stuff, pretty much fans and viewers of the product are gonna know that the character is gonna be all right. Heck, when they pulled that whole temporary death, death scenes in Sonic Lost World, where everybody lost their souls, basically, you knew they were going to be all right. You knew that. And to me, this is something that like I said, you knew they were going to be all right. But to me, this is something that, you didn't, with that as an exception, because pretty much that was the souls that were gone. They were pretty much a husk. But again, like I'm saying, with that exception and a few others, the whole, let's turn the hero's friends, his girlfriend, his love interest, his little sister or little brother or best friend or best friend, best female friend or whatever. Let's turn them into stone statues. Let's turn them into crystal statues. Let's turn them into plants like trees. And, basically give them, and basically have that put them out of the, and have that be the excuse to get them out of the way, at least for an episode or so. It's played to death. It's played out to death. It really is. It really is played out to death. And another example is Witch. It was, I think, around the mid portion of the first season or so. One of the, I guess you could say, ex-members of the villainous witches, if you will, who turned good, like I said, midway through the first season, she got turned into a freaking pumpkin. And why? To get her out of the way for the rest of the season. She was given that false death of, let's get this character out of the way for the season and be done with it. Again, this is a trope. This is a trope card that has not been played that much anymore. The most recent example in comic form would be the My Little Pony IDW comics. Basically, you have Sombra in a multi-arc issue to finally, I think, accomplish his goal, and he turns Celestia and Luna into crystal. Turns them into crystal statues that are like on display outside the castle. Now, I'm sure they got restored, so that's not a problem. But still, if you're a fan of MLP and you're watching the animated adaptation and you see Luna and Celestia okay there and fine there, and yet you see them in crystal form here, you know they're going to be all right. So why even play that card? Why even go there? Again, it's just my opinion, and maybe I'm wrong about it. Because like I said earlier, I understand that every now and then, every few years, you get this new generation of young fans that need something to obtain their interest, get them talking, get them to tune in the following day or week. I get that. But still, it's something that I think honestly has run its course and should only be brought out for special occasions. Like if you're going to do a major season finale for, let's say, something like My Little Pony, and you want to play that trump card, that would be the time to play it. Find the time if you're going to do a multi-part finale for MLP season finale. Find a episode, a part, or chapter in that finale to play it and go from there. That would be the best time. Don't waste it on just a half hour. Don't waste it midway through or anything like that because you're going to play it out. All right? Unless you make sure the character remains as crystal or stone up until the end. And another way you can make even those that pretty much are make the viewers or fans pretty much feel like, they'll be okay, they'll be fine. Here's what you do. You tease at the fact that the character might end up getting destroyed. You do that. You do that, and you'll gain the people's interest to keep watching because then you're throwing something their way. You're creating that conflict that needs to be there. But still, if you don't tease, oh, a character is going to get destroyed or this or that, then what's the point of doing it? And I'm not trying to say this to be cruel. I'm just trying to figure out better ways to make this false death trope of being turned into stone and crystal and plants and whatever. I'm trying to make it more, trying to find ways to make it interesting again. I'm trying to find and think of ways to make it conflictable again. But if you can't find those reasonings, then why even play the card? Why? I mean, you'd be better off playing the trope card of having one of the major heroes or heroines or one of the side characters like girlfriend or boyfriend or whatever have the power to turn themselves into anything they want to be, whether it's another person or an inanimate object, statue, or whatever, just to play around with the power, be mischiefy, kind of have some fun, you know, play if you know play if that card gets played, right, it's actually a change of pace because it hasn't been played that much, and you haven't, and that would be something fans would actually look forward to and actually talk about and really get a kick out of. Because like I said, that is one side of this situation that's not been played with. The other side of doing the false death thing with it has been played to death. It's been played out, period. But on the other side of the coin, if you were to go in the other direction of, like I said, letting the good guy characters do it for fun, especially let's say their girlfriends or their boyfriends or whatever, that's something new. That's something that nobody has ever seen before. They've only read about it. So I don't know. I'm just saying I'm just saying my opinion here. And my opinion is, I don't have a problem with it, but I think mostly if I was to improve on it, I would save it for special occasions, for like finales or even premieres, season premieres or season finales, or even series finales. I would save it for then. And if you're going to do a multi-arc finale, I'd save it for then especially. And if you're going to, have it happen in one episode and have that character or characters remain that way for the rest of the season, then don't just have them remain that way for the rest of the season and not do anything with them, or not do and just basically what I'm saying is, if you're going to leave them like that for the rest of the season till the end, don't have them be that way, without kind of adding some kind of drama to it. Have a villain or have a minion of the villain get near them or threaten to destroy them or whatever. And by doing so, you can create some general interest again, because you're going to be making people tune in and wonder if you're going to pull that trigger and actually have the character get destroyed, or in their trapped form. That would be more interesting and more conflicting and more, more of a reason for people to want to watch what happens. What happens next, that is. So, to me, honestly, I think it's just unless something changes, like I mentioned, just now and throughout this video, I just would rather save it for the big season premieres, season finales, or series finales. I would just save it for then. Don't drag it out for one episode and waste it, and that's it. Keep it going. Keep it good. Here's what I'm saying. Don't drag it out for one episode and then restore them in that same episode. If you're going to do that, keep it going, but make it interesting by making it seem like you never know if perhaps that character is going to get destroyed in a trap form. Make some kind of conflict out of it, so you at least gain some interest. Don't just have them like that for maybe an episode or two during the middle of the season and then have them restored. If you're going to do that, like I said, and you're going to leave them like that for the rest of the season, make it look like, a villain, the main villain or a minion of theirs has like a hammer or something like that and is going to bash them. But they get prevented. But they come so close and so close. And you wonder, oh, are they going to finally do it? Are the creators, the writers going to pull the trigger? Do something like that, and you really gain the people's attention instead of just going with the traditional false death routine of turning someone into a statue, a stone statue, or a crystal statue, or a tree, or a plant, or whatever, just to get them out of the way for that episode or a couple of episodes or for the rest of the season. Do something more with it. And like I said, go if you want, and like I said, if you really want to make it more interesting, if they get, let's say, absorbed or turned into a substance like crystal or stone or whatever, or a tree or a plant of some kind, or they get absorbed in some kind of goo, like let's say in that fairy tale episode, then do something more with it. Have something happen to where those that get turned into stone or crystal, let's say there's a monster or somebody that's got the powers or something like that to merge with all the crystal around or all the stone around, have it to where those that even got turned into stone statues or stone crystal end up merging with said creature or said person that has that power or said character that has that power. Thus you create a conflict for the hero, because the hero, he has to destroy the villain, but he can't destroy his friends. You kind of get my drift, right? So, and again, that's the one thing I look at when I look at Worlds Collide, and I'm thinking Ian Flynn missed the boat on that with the roboticized masters of Amy, Shadow, the Chaotix, Knuckles, Blaze, and Silver. He missed the boat on that. He really did. So, again, unless something changes, I'd rather see Western animation and European animation and anime studios focus more on the turning into stone crystals, turning into stone statues, crystal statues, plants, trees, whatever. I'd rather see them focus on the characters having the main characters or the side characters or love interest having that power to do so with themselves and all that. I'd rather them focus on them doing that for fun and having some fun with it, being mischiefy, instead of always going back to that whole false death, turn them into this, get them out of the way routine. So, but that's just my opinion. I'm sorry this video dragged long. I just wanted to get this off my chest. And let me know what you guys think down below. I'll provide a link to the Sega Form 1 where I talked about it. and actually, to the Sega Form 1 where I talked about it. And let me know what you guys think. And do you think it's been played out? And do you think you'd rather see maybe some kind of change to make it more interesting? Or do you think maybe they should go in a direction to where, let's say, the main hero or heroine's comrades, like a love interest or side characters or whatever, do it for fun to themselves and all that? So let me know in it, to where they have the power maybe just for one episode. So let me know if maybe you would like to see that down the line. So that's all I'm gonna say, folks. And until next time, God bless. Take care. I am out.